This video is about making inferences in the short story Thank You Ma'am. It's part 2 of the story. Inferences are kind of like what we call reading between the lines. It means understanding more than what's on the page. In the story, a boy named Roger gets caught trying to steal the purse of a woman named Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. She teaches him a lesson, and he grows as a person. Let's see some inferences you can make while reading the story. Mrs. Jones has brought Roger up to her apartment and told him to wash up. After washing his face, the text says, "The door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run, but he does not." What can we infer about Roger from this? You have to consider the clues from the story so far and think of how people act to see what the running means for this story. Roger got caught stealing. He was honest with Mrs. Jones. He's acting scared, sweating and struggling. He's asking about jail. From all these things, what does it mean? You might think a bunch of different things. Maybe you think this is a story about Roger bravely rebelling against the authority of Mrs. Jones. Or maybe you realize that Roger's going to learn to take responsibility. He did something bad, and now he's going to try to be better. Or maybe you think Roger's going to go get justice and get revenge for how he was treated. Those could all be things you think of, but really only one of them is right. Roger's going to learn to choose to take responsibility. So Roger thinks he could run. But what does the idea of running show? Running means he can escape, he'd avoid the situation, and running means no responsibility. You can also look at how this was written. The passage reads very quickly. It's a little bit suspenseful. The words come fast. It repeats run, to show that this is very tempting to Roger. The suspense makes the reader care about Roger's choice. And Roger chooses not to run. We can infer that Roger's changing his thinking. He's growing. He's becoming more mature. The kindness and forgiveness of Mrs. Jones gives Roger this chance. Next, they talk. She prepares food for him. Mrs. Jones leaves out her purse, the same purse Roger was going to steal. The text says, "But the boy took care to sit on the far side of the room where he thought she could easily see him out of the corner of her eye if she wanted to. He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now." What clues does this give us? Well, it tells us outright that Roger does not want to be mistrusted. And that's a double negative. What it means is that Roger wants to be trusted. It's telling us what his thinking is. Before, he tried to steal the purse, and he tried to lie about it. But now Roger is actively thinking that he will be honest and he will be trustworthy. Roger knows his own inner heart now. Before, he had temptation to run and escape and fight and struggle. From this, we can infer that he's owning up to his past behavior, and he's trying to be worthy of her kindness. So his thinking ties in to the overall theme of the story of her forgiveness and kindness and him growing as a person. Lastly, we can consider the meal Roger and Mrs. Jones share. As she prepares food, Roger asks Mrs. Jones, "Do you need somebody to go to the store and maybe get some milk or something?" What can we infer from this part of the story? Rather than trying to steal, Roger's trying to be helpful, decent, and dependable. He's trying to be worthy of trust. With clues from the whole story, we can see that Roger has changed. We can also infer that some trust has built up between Roger and Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. They share a humble meal at 11 o'clock at night, Sharing food so late is usually only something that happens in a family. Mrs. Jones is taking on the role of a parent and showing Roger the right way to be. The story doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you some clues to add to what you already know to show deeper and larger truths. You have to read between the lines. Kids like Roger can be trapped in tough circumstances. Poverty brings burdens and challenges that affect how people view themselves and others. Decency and kindness can help overcome these problems. Those are the bigger ideas that we can infer from reading these stories. When you get better at inferring, you get better at seeing all the clues. From there, there's a world full of people waiting for you to show them kindness and that you're a trustworthy person too. So this has been a video on Inferences and Thank You Ma'am Part 2. I hope it helped you understand the story a little bit better, and hopefully you'll be better at making inferences. Thanks.